Hi. It's nice to see you again. I see a lot of old friends and a lot of new faces. How many of you have heard me speak before?
Many times.
Many, I know, many times.
Three times.
3 times, yeah, I think. How many of you have never heard me speak before? Okay, all right, cool. Well, good. I wasn't going to assume that you knew anything about me, so I see Martin over there playing with the thermostat. It's funny, I saw Martin at a party a few weeks ago, and he said, "Oh yeah, I see that you have a talk coming up at the Humanists. I saw the title, but I didn't understand what it meant." And you probably don't either. And that's okay, because the synergy effect is a phrase that I'm coining. And I'll explain to you what it is, and then I'll explain to you why it's important to me, and then why it's probably important to you too. Does that sound like a good deal?
Yeah.
Thanks, always. Okay, so the synergy effect is basically when you combine ideas from 2 or more domains or fields or disciplines, you're going to create something that's different from the original parts, something that's new, something that's fresh. And you've all heard of the phrase, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Have you? Yeah, so that sweet spot that's created by overlapping fields or overlapping disciplines is actually quite different from the disciplines themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, and let me give you an example I think everybody will recognize. Biotech. Technology meets biology, you get biotech. So I'm going to go into a lot more details about how this works, and but right now I just want to dive into why it's important to me. A lot of times, by the way, when we think about this sort of merging of ideas, we think about it in terms of people working on teams that are from different backgrounds, but you can also have a synergy effect that occurs inside of yourself. And I think that's what might be really interesting to you today. So let me talk about my personal synergy effect. Those of you who know me know I have a kind of a weird background, a weird story. Those of you who don't, I'm just going to give you the short version of it. But once upon a time, I was a professor. I taught psychology at Santa Clara University, and I taught at UCSC. I have a PhD from Princeton, and I really enjoyed being a professor, but I always felt like there was something kind of missing. Have any of you ever felt like something's kind of missing from your life, like something's kind of off? Anybody ever feel that way? Thank you for the 5 people. No, you're not alone, Michelle. So anyway, I used to have students come to me to ask me for advice about what they should do with their lives, and I always told them to follow their hearts. And then, you know, one day it occurred to me that I wasn't following my own heart, because what I really wanted to do is I wanted to be a rock and roll star. Yeah, I know. My mother said that was crazy, and so did a lot of people, but I really wanted to do that. So I left my full-time job as a professor. I got a CD together, went over to South Africa, got a major label deal, and had 11 songs on the radio, and one of them went to the top 10. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you. So while I was in South Africa, I remember I was being interviewed on the radio, and by this particular DJ who looked at me and said, "Are you ever going to go back to teaching?" And I said, "No. I'm a rock and roll star. Why would I do that?" So what's interesting is that's what I thought I was doing. I was going from being a professor to being a musician. But actually it was a lot more complicated than that, but I didn't know it yet. So I came back to California after I had that record deal and that success, and I thought, well, you know, if I can get on a new path that makes my heart sing, I can help people do that too. Why not? I'm good at this. I'm a good teacher, right? So I started to offer these creativity workshops and helping people to find out what their unique creative gift is, and also helping them to figure out what career would really turn them on. And what I didn't realize I was doing is I was saying, there's a little tiny plus sign. I don't know if you can see that in the slide, but rather than professor or singer, I realized what I was doing is I was merging the two into something new. that I'd never done before. So when I taught these creativity workshops, it was really interesting because I was having amazing success. I mean, I've had thousands of people take workshops from me, and why were they so effective? And it's only looking back now that I'm starting to see why that is. So I brought my professor self. I was an expert in creativity in terms of, I mean, I know the psychology of creativity. And creativity, to psychologists, it's a skill that can be honed, it can be taught. There's certain methods to do it. I brought that to the workshops, but I also brought the artist to the workshops. I'm talking as if I'm two different people, right? But professor, artist, now you take the picture, right? Schizophrenic. But actually, I'm just one person, right? Do you see more than one person up here?
No. Yeah.
One person in the back. Okay, that's all right. Sometimes I feel like I'm two people. But I would bring these two. So as an artist, you know, one of the things, how many of you are artists or dabble in art? Okay, yeah, dabbling is important. So one of the most important things you want to be able to do as an artist is to turn that inner critic off so that you can just get into a flow state. So as an artist, I had really good techniques for doing that. That didn't come from my psychology self. So what I found that I was doing is I added together professor plus artist becomes creativity workshop leader. And unbeknownst to me, I now had 3 careers going on. And I did all of them at the same time because when I came back from South Africa, I continued to be a professor. So here is why the synergy effect is interesting and important to me. If you're a person like me who has 2 or 3 different careers going at the same time, you can feel pretty crazy sometimes. Who am I? Which hat do I wear today? Who am I talking to? Oh, I can switch. But when you start to realize that you are all of those people at the same time and you start to merge them, you can really be very, very effective in the world. And what I realized is what I had done, I was helping my students do too. So let me give you an example of one of the first students I ever had come to a workshop with me. Her name is Trisha. That's not actually her. I wasn't going to put her name up there. But she's a police detective in San Jose. And she came to my workshop because she was tired of being a police detective. She wanted to retire early, and she wanted to travel the world. So she came to my workshop because she thought that the way to be able to afford to do that would be to write travel brochures. The only problem was she wasn't any good at writing, and she didn't enjoy writing. So here she is coming to my workshop once a week. I was never sure, but I think she may have had her gun with her. And so every week that we didn't make a breakthrough, I was sweating bullets because, you know, because how's she going to react if I don't help her? But I remember there was a day when I looked at her and I thought, wait, she likes being a police detective. You could tell she, you know, her shoulders were always held high. She liked it. And I said to her, maybe instead of thinking you have to be a police detective or travel the world, why can't you do both? Why are you presenting it as an or? Maybe it can be an and. Is that making sense to you guys, what I'm talking about? Okay, I love him. He's the ultimate fan. Okay, anyway. And so what happened, I heard 6 months later from other people who had taken our workshop, was that Trisha had landed a job with the United Nations teaching the local police force in Bosnia to adopt human rights procedures. How cool is that? She found her own little personal synergy effect. Instead of choosing between being different people, she brought her expertise together with her passion, and when she brought them together, she created a new identity for herself, a very, very effective identity. Do you agree with that? So what I want to say to you is that all of you, I just converted these slides to PowerPoint to use on this laptop, so sorry, some of them look a little weird. But what I want to say to you is all of you have this synergy effect potential in yourselves as well. And what I want you to think about in the back of your mind as we're going through this is, how many of you have ever had more than one profession? Okay, so that's about almost half. Okay, okay. Does somebody want to say what your two or three profession? Anybody want to offer just a? Anybody? Okay, I see a hand with absolutely no body behind it. Okay, yeah. What's yours?
Professor.
Professor.
And interpreter.
Interpreter. Translator. Okay. All right. So professor and translator. So those could be possibly two circles you could think about. I know it's weird, but think about those circles and how do they overlap? Because it could be two fields of expertise, or it can be a field of expertise and a hobby. I mean, if you think about it, when I started out as a psychology professor, I was doing music as a hobby. And Trisha, I mean, traveling was a passion for her, but it wasn't an area of expertise, but it was a real passion for her. So how many of you have hobbies? Does anybody want to just shout out a couple of hobbies that people have? I'm just curious. What do you have?
Sailing.
Sailing. Awesome. What about you? You raised your hand too. Yeah. Cooking. Yeah, great. Yes. What about you?
Photography and creating maybe scale model rooms.
Photography and scale model rooms. You can even combine two hobbies. Beautiful, and you're probably really good at it, I bet. Because when you overlap these things, I have up here, it's almost like it's a superpower because it's bringing all of your best selves together. And you're going to be different from everybody else, and you're going to be really, really good at whatever this thing is. Is this kind of clicking with you? Are you getting this? Okay, good. Because I want you to think about it in the back of your